Hello, everyone, and today we're talking about the Colonial Parkway murders. And I am going to disclose that I've recorded this opening many times, so I'm hoping this is the last one. But we're talking about the Colonial Parkway murders today, so let's get into it. The Colonial Parkway is a stretch of highway that cuts through, not connects, cuts through the Colonial National Historical Park in southeast Virginia. The parkway is surrounded by woods and has very, very few entries and exits, which is not typical for your normal highway. And this highway had been seen as a very peaceful place. Not much really happened on it. There weren't a lot of outrageous things happening. But all that would change as the highway suddenly became the setting of a gruesome string of murders. On October 12th, 1986, someone had seen a car down an embankment on the Colonial Parkway, and it was obscured from the view of the road. They called a highway officer, and when they arrived on the scene, they made the gruesome discovery of finding the bodies of two young women who were in the car that the passerby had found. And the two women in the car were identified as Kathy Thomas, a 27-year-old graduate of the Naval Academy, and Rebecca Ann Dowski, who was 21 years old and a student at the College of William and Mary. The couple were reported to have been missing on the evening of October 9th after they were seen leaving the computer lab. The two women had been bound with rope and strangled, and it seemed like their throats had been slit. And it was so deep they were nearly decapitated. So not full decapitation, but close enough. When they found the bodies, Rebecca's body had been found in the back seat of the car, whereas Kathy's body was found in the hatchback. And upon investigating what had happened to these two women, they did not find any evidence of sexual assault. The police said that they believed the murders had happened elsewhere because there was no blood, like not that much blood in the car itself, not really indicating a crime scene, especially people who are nearly decapitated. Um, and it just looked like their bodies were dumped in the car, not really like they were already there. And also, they ruled out robbery because both women's purses were still there, no money, no jewelry, no IDs, nothing was stolen. And it looked also like the killer had attempted to burn the car with gasoline, but failed. I don't know how you failed to do that. I think the only way you can fail to do that is either you forgot to buy matches, or you didn't have a lighter, or you didn't even put oil on the car. I don't know if there's any other way that, like, how someone could screw that up, because I don't know how that process works, so. But the police had investigated intensively into this, but unfortunately, the case would go cold. And things seemed to return to normal. That is, until September 22nd, 1987. It was then that another young couple had been found along the bank of the James River in Virginia. And the two bodies were Dave Nobbling, 20, who was 20 years old, and Robin Edwards, 14. And they had been missing since September 19th. Earlier that day, they had met at an arcade, and Robin had snuck out later that night to meet up with David, and David's car had been discovered in a parking lot near James River Bridge. When they found the car, there were two pairs of underwear, shoes, and David's wallet found in the car, which ruled robbery out as a probable motive. The driver's side window was partially rolled down, and police believed that maybe the perpetrator had possibly been posing as an officer or some form of policeman or traffic control or something. Now, both victims had been shot. Robin in the back of the head, execution style, in the back of the head. And David was shot twice, once in the head and once in the shoulder, like he had been running from the killer. And Robin's pants were partially rolled down, but police were unsure if there had been sexual assault because Robin and David were known to be intimate. So they couldn't really determine just off of that whether there was sexual assault. Now, even though these murders had not happened on the Colonial Parkway, the police linked these cases because both sets of victims had been killed around Lover's Lane. And the two locations were only about 30-minute drive apart. So they linked the cases, but once again, despite the best investigative efforts of the time, the case went cold again. Less than a year later, another young couple had gone missing. On April 10th, 1888, two Christopher Newport University students, Sandra Haley, who was 18, and Richard Call, who was 20, went missing after attending a party together in Newport News. It was the young couple's very first date. Imagine... I'm sorry if I'm smiling and laughing, but I just can't, because I've never lived through something like this. I can't imagine what it'd be like to just be on your first date, so nervous already, and that's the last time you even see each other or your families. You didn't go out expecting this to happen to you. To think of how scared they must have been. All of these people, all of these victims, probably horrified. I couldn't even imagine. A day later, Richard's car was found at the York River Outlook, just off the Colonial Parkway, about 2 miles from where Kathy and Rebecca were discovered, and this time all of their clothing that they had been wearing was found inside the car, along with their wallets and purse, and which again ruled out robbery. Despite extensive searches, these two were never found, and the couple were presumed dead. A year and a half later, two more young people went missing near the Colonial Parkway. This time, it was on Memorial Day weekend in 1989. Daniel Lohr, 21, was driving to his brother's house in Virginia Beach with his brother's girlfriend, Anna Maria Phelps, who was 18. On September 5th, they were reported missing when their car was found abandoned at the New Kent stop on I-64. This is so, sorry, side tangent. This is strange for me to hear these locations, given that I've been around some of these interstates, and near the Colonial Parkway, I've seen that. I've been in Virginia Beach before, and to just think of it, I didn't even know. I think I'm one of the rare people that didn't even know about this. So I'm learning too, and I have all this up in front of me because I can't remember, and I'm phrasing it in my own words. Okay, back to the story. Not story, real life, back to the actual murders that happened at Colonial Parkway. Not a story. This is real, this is fact. God damn it. Okay. The car was found on the westbound side of the highway, and that was in the opposite direction of their original destination, which confused everyone that was searching investigating this next murder. And police were unclear whether Anna Maria and David pulled over and were killed at either a restaurant or a rest stop or something, or if they were killed elsewhere. The killer moved their car. I mean, because, again, the purses was found in the car, ruling out robbery again, and the bodies were found a month later, October 19th, by hunters. Hunters found these bodies while they were on I believe they're called logging roads, about a mile away from the nearest rest stop. And both bodies had been covered in a blanket and were horribly decomposed. And it made it impossible to determine whether there had been any sexual assault. Even though the cause of death could not be determined, there were what appeared to be stab marks on Anna Maria's bones, suggesting she had possibly been stabbed to death, just like the other three cases. The case eventually, though, went cold again, and the killer was never brought to justice. Now, there are some theories that people have, the police and as well the public. The police attribute these 8 murders to the same killer because of the multiple similarities that every single victim had. All the victims were killed at or near their car. The first 3 being found at Lovers Lane areas, not exactly Lovers Lane, but areas around it. And none of the victims were robbed. No sexual assault appeared to be a motive in any of the cases. The first and third murders were miles apart, and the second and fourth were committed about half an hour away from each other. However, some do not think that these murders were committed by one person. People think at least 2 or more people had to be involved in this. There's a difference in killing methods. As Kathy and Rebecca were strangled and had their throats slits, David and Robin were shot, and Anna Maria and Daniel were stabbed. So there were different MOs happening. It didn't seem like it was consistent with one serial killer. Eventually, Detective Steve Springola was asked to investigate the Colonial Parkway murders as a private investigator. And he believes that the murders of Kathy and Rebecca are completely separate from the other ones. In fact, he believes it's connected to another double homicide. A double homicide that occurred in Shenandoah National Park in 1996, where a young couple didn't return home. They were reported missing. Their bodies were found on June 1st. They had been bound and gagged similar to Kathy and Rebecca, and their throats had also been slit. So Springola believes that those 2 sets of murders were hate crimes committed by the same perpetrator. Despite theories that all the crimes in the Colonial Parkway murders may not be detected, many people still believe that they're all the work of one single serial killer. And over the years, law enforcement has questioned over 150 suspects in connection to these 4 cases, but all of them have been cleared. And in 2018, the Facebook page for Colonial Parkway Murders, which is run by Kathy's brother, Bill Thomas, revealed that DNA had been found at 3 of the 4 crime scenes, which could potentially conclusively link the cases and lead to an arrest. Hair had been found in Kathy's hand, and a biological sample on Robin have never been tested, but with the advances of DNA technology and resources like GED match, and the families of the victims are hopeful that someday they could finally get answers. And I hope for that too. I hope that someday we can finally get an answer to who committed all these crimes. Whether they're connected or not, I'm pretty sure all of the victims' families would appreciate an answer. So if any of you have any information, reach out to local authorities if you know anything, if you stumble upon anything. Even if it's not related to this case. If you're on a hike and you suddenly stumble across something like that's kind of weird, maybe tell someone about it. Like weird in a bad way, not weird in a good way. There's 2 different types of weird. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. This is a short episode, but that's really all of the places I went to said the same thing, and I'm getting this from the international. Oh no, that's not what I'm getting it from. I'm getting it from crimemuseum.org. So if you guys want to look up and read things about the Colonial Parkway murders, or it's the Crime Museum, so they probably have a lot more stuff, you guys can go ahead and check out their website. I will put their link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one.